Welcome to the first episode of The Demonastery. I'm Jack, your host. It's really exciting to be doing this. The first time making one of these videos, so bear with me. I'm sure that as we go on, the technical quality will increase over time. Really excited to be talking about Vynnset today. First, I'm going to talk a little about who I am because it's my first time doing one of these videos, and my cats are currently ruining the video just like I thought they would.
12 seconds later.
And we're back. Caught the culprits trying to get food, weren't you? This is Speary. She's very, very food motivated. You can see because she's kind of porky. Anyway, we were talking about Flesh and Blood, right? My name's Jack. Like I said, I've been playing Flesh and Blood for almost a year now. Pretty much almost exclusively playing Runeblade, but I've also played Ninja and Icinder a bit. When I got into the game, my initial plan was actually to play Icinder, but then with Briar being so close to Living Legend, I wanted to play her competitively, and then she just keeps sticking around. So I just kept on Runeblade, and I got like into Viscerai in preparation for Briar being gone, and then Briar still stuck around. So, yeah, I have all the Viscerai stuff. I've been playing him a lot as well. Really, really love Runeblade. I love that. Thinking through how you're going to make the lines work with the non-attacks and the attacks and that balance. And I love that from a deck building perspective. I think it's really interesting. And I love how, those turns, they can just all of a sudden go off. And if you do one thing wrong, it all doesn't work. I love that about Runeblade, and I definitely feel like they're definitely true to that flavor with Vynnset. So yeah, the goal of the channel really is going to be just to pretty much provide as much content as possible on Vynnset. She is a very new, exciting hero. I think a lot of people are interested in her. So I'm hoping to share my thoughts and ideas about how to build her, how to play her, and I'm hoping that people will comment and get engaged as well, and we can build kind of a community together here on the channel around Vynnset and how to play her in the best way. Yeah, so for today's video, I'm gonna just give my initial impressions and thoughts of the character, and then I'm gonna go through a deck tech. I've been kind of brewing and working on stuff pretty much since the image for her was released following the Singapore event recently. So I've been kind of going through just with her existing card pool and trying. Did you guys hear that? My cats are chasing each other. It's so funny because I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, they're gonna ruin this video, aren't they? Well, I was right. Now he's grappling his tunnel. Oh, she just took him out. Yeah, I have a boy and a girl, and they're actually half. Oh my god! Now the camera just shook because they're shaking the table. They're ruining everything. Anyway, we'll stay on track. Vynnset, yes. If you want to build Vynnset in February, you have to go to the open format here, and if you scroll down, she's at the bottom. We're going to name this Vynnset CC. Save that. Okay. So, here she is. Her ability says, at the start of your turn, banish a card from your hand. If you do, create a rune chant token. That's one thing. Next thing is, whenever you play a shadow non-attack action card, you may pay 1 life. If you do, the next rune chant effect that would deal damage this turn can't be prevented. So there's kind of 2 abilities there. My impression of the first one is that you have to do this. It's mandatory, right? The reason it says if you do is because if you have no cards and you don't banish anything, you wouldn't create a rune chant. But you always have to banish something. And that kind of means 2 things. One, we need to have a lot of cards with Blood Debt in our deck. If we have to banish a card that doesn't have Blood Debt, we're turning the value of that card into a rune chant, which is not a good conversion. So given that, the second thing, in my opinion, is that it's going to be very hard to play mid-range with her. If you want to block with 2 cards and then play 2 cards, Runeblade typically doesn't have a lot of 1 or 2 card hands. And you're even more hampered now because you have to banish something. So you can't just block with 3 cards and play 1 card, or block with 3 cards and arsenal, because you have to banish a card as well. So to me, that means that it's very, very hard to go mid-range with her, and she's probably going to be an aggro character in terms of her playstyle. And so I've built this deck I'm going to build with you in a minute. It's a very, very much an aggro deck. So yeah, that's my impression with the first part of the ability. The second part of the ability is, right, you're paying life to make a rune chant unblockable, right? Now, the current pool of shadow non-attack action cards, if we take a look. Shadow. These are really not, like, there's maybe 3 that are good. Howl from Beyond, Seeds, obviously, which will be legal in CC, right, because Chain is Living Legend. And Shadow Puppetry, which Shadow Puppetry is amazing. We're taking that card. This card's kind of bad. We'll talk about that later. So this is it. You've got kind of 3 that trigger this ability. Well, I guess if you take the other colors of Seeds, you would have 5. But like, that's not a lot to work with. So I'm assuming, I'm just guessing that her card pool is going to have her card pool in the new set in Dusk Till Dawn is going to have a lot of shadow non-attacks, or at least a fair amount, to give her some more options to actually use this ability. So when I first looked at this, I said, "Oh, well, this is a finisher. This ability is a finisher because she doesn't have Rosetta." What I found out in like the testing and playing around with it is that it's kind of hard to pull that off if you're in a situation where your life is really low. Yes, if you have more life than them, you can totally win the game this way. But really, really what it does is it turns on cards that have abilities that say, if you've dealt arcane damage, XYZ. So for example, the most obvious one that comes to mind, not meet and greet, right? If you have dealt or deal arcane damage to an opposing hero this turn, meet and greet gains go again. Okay, so your line, right, is that you banish a shadow non-attack. Let's say it's Seeds of Agony. Play it out. You pay a life. Attack with meet and greet. Now that rune chant that gets popped to your opponent from the meet and greet is unblockable. You've dealt arcane damage. Meet and greet gains go again. This is really good. There's a number of cards that have that requirement in Runeblade, and we're running pretty much all of them in the deck that I'm going to build with you guys. Other thing about this ability, this part of the ability, is that I suspect that the second weapon, right, because she's got this flail, right, which is one, oh, Jesus, my screen. I hate this February, this Zoom thing, you can't, oh my God, stop. Why? I just want to look at it. You pay a life, attacks for 1. If it hits, you make a rune chant. Doesn't have go again. It's one-handed. So I think there's a second weapon. I would just suspect that it's a staff or an orb or some type of thing. And I'm guessing that weapon says, when you lose life from an effect you control, create a rune chant token. Which that would mean then that if that is what the other weapon is, because I don't think you're taking 2 flails, right? They don't have go again. There's no way you can actually use both of them. There's got to be some other weapon. And if that weapon does what I'm guessing, then now when you pay a life to prevent the next arcane, you're also making a rune chant. So you're trading life for rune chants. And I think ultimately that is what Vynnset is going to do. So there's a number of cards in the set, obviously, that are going to play around with this. There's going to be a number of cards in the set that have Rune Gate, right? She's missing a huge component of what she's actually going to have right now, obviously. But we're still making a deck. We're still playing around with it because we can learn a lot about how she plays, what kind of lines she likes, what cards that are in the existing pool of cards are good for her, what cards in the existing pool of cards are bad for her. So it's a really fun kind of exercise and kind of a challenge to find like what the best deck is without even having all of her tools. And I think after going through a number of iterations, I actually think I have a deck that I feel pretty good about. It's definitely not, a great deck. It's probably a solidly B+ tier deck. But given that, without the rest of her cards, I feel like she's probably going to be pretty strong. So yeah, that's my impression of her, her abilities, what my kind of thoughts on that. Really, really excited about this. I think they found a really cool way to combine the focus on rune chants that Viserai has and the focus on the shadow cards and playing out a banish that Shane has and combine them in a really, really interesting way. And I'm super excited to get to play her more and see the rest of her pool. So let's get into the deck tech here. So got the hero, but we need a weapon. These are our options. First, I'll say that I've gone through several iterations of the deck, each time with a different weapon. What I've found is that, so I initially started building her very similar to Viserai, in that when you pick a weapon, let's say like you're playing Rosetta, and it costs 1. So what you try to do is you use Mauvrin Skies and 2 cost attacks, and then you have little filler cards that extend the turn, like Revel in Runeblood or Swarming Gloomveil or Sonata Arcanics. So that's a very tight and very clean resource curve because you're pitching a blue for a 2 cost, and then everything else is free. Your last resource is used to swing the weapon, right? So I built different iterations of the deck with different weapons and trying to preserve that pattern with the resource costs. So I made a Rosetta deck, I made a Nebula Blade deck, and I made a Flail deck. What I found with those is that that commitment to the 2 cost attack so that you can swing Rosetta, or the 1 cost attack to swing Nebula, or a 3 cost attack actually if you're doing Flail of Agony, right? Because you don't need to pitch. It's just cost life. I found that kind of limited what cards we wanted to take. And with Vynnset, we want to take advantage of both of her abilities, right? We want to take advantage of the fact that we have to banish a card with Blood Debt. Otherwise, we're really losing value. So we need a lot of Blood Debt cards. We need half our deck at least to be Blood Debt cards, is what I found. And then we also want to be using this ability of playing a Shadow non-attack. So we want cards, like I was saying, like Meet and Greet, that turn on when we can force through Arcane, right? And make the Arcane unblockable. The problem with like sticking to that very strict resource curve, like traditionally we would with Viserai, is that, for example, like if I'm taking Rosetta Thorn, normally, like in Viserai, I would not want to run Meet and Greet because Meet and Greet only costs 1, so it doesn't fit in with your standard turn, right? You end up being a resource short. But in Vynnset, that card is amazing, right? So we want to take that card. And similarly, there aren't very many cost 2 Blood Debt cards, right? Because we really need to take those so we can banish. If we look at attacks here, when we go Runeblade Shadow, cost 2. That should work. Yep. Is these 3? It's Piercing Shadow Eyes, Rifted Torment, and Rift Through Reality. And these cards are okay, but they're nowhere as near as good as the ones that Viserai is running, right? Shrill Skull Form, Spellblade Assault, Deathly Duet. Those cards are amazing for Viserai. We can't take them because they're not Blood Debt cards. and because they don't synergize in some way with Vynnset's ability. So I have the current deck, which is with Rosetta Thorn. Uses a very kind of different, I would say, resource curve than your typical Viserai deck. But I think that it works. It ends up working out pretty good. We have slightly less blues, and we'll talk about that. So yeah, we're running Rosetta. We can run it because Briar is still here. So so we're gonna run it. It's really just the best. That 2 arcane, that split damage. Everyone knows this is just the best weapon. I would make a flail deck. That would be the deck I'd be showing you. Except that like I said, I'm really convinced that we're missing another weapon here that goes with the flail. So I don't really want to build that deck until we have all the tools for it, and Rosetta is just so good. So that's our weapon. We've got Rosetta, and then we need some equipment here. So we'll start with the headpiece, and that's just going to be Crown of Providence. So good. Everyone knows this is a good card. Really, really good for Runeblade, because if we get all non-attacks or all attacks, we can fix our hand and not lose our tempo. Really great for Vynnset, though, right? Because we really need, in addition to a good ratio of attacks and non-attacks, we also need at least 1 blood deck card. So this says, hey, you don't have a blood deck card? Well, now you can filter and get what you need. So definitely want Crown of Providence. If you want a budget option, though, Skullcap is completely acceptable. Very good card, very good value out of that. It blocks for 3 if you do it right. And another option, actually, is Evanfold, which is really great. We get to banish 2 cards now, pay 1 to banish a card, and if it's a shadow card, we draw a card. So if we banish a blood debt, we get an extra card. This can really turn on some big turns sometimes. So I've tested with this a little bit, and while Crown is better, this is also a good budget option. So keep that in mind if you don't want to cash out the $320 that you need for Crown of Providence, which is kind of reasonable. So then if we look at the chest piece here, definitely we're taking Aether Ironweave. No argument. This card is so good. Blocks for 1 with Battle Worn, so it's not destroyed when we block with it, and we can get 2 resources if we play it to non-attack and attack, which in Runeblade is what we're doing. Anyway, so this card is amazing. And then we're gonna look at and here's the controversial thing. I'm sure people will have something to say about this. I'm not running Grasp of the Arknight in my main board here as my arms because it's pay 2, create a rune chant. It blocks 3, right? Because it's Battle Warden. It's 2 block. So this is a great card. And this is one of the best pieces of equipment in the game. I will, every other time I would take this card. But we already start with our turn with a rune chant. So paying 3 to make another rune chant is really bad. And really, since we're taking Phantom Banshee in this deck, right? Since we were trying to play this Rune Gate card, and we need 3. Oh my God, Fabrary! See this glitchy thing that it does? It won't let me. Stop! No! Ow! My brain. Oh, okay. Well, I give up. We know what Rune Gate does. Phantom Banshees, 3-cost attack. Rune Gate says if you control rune chants equal to or greater than the cost, you can play it from your banish zone for free. So when we do that, it comes in, pops the 3 rune chants, comes in for 7, so it's a 0 for 10. Well, if we start the turn with 1 rune chant, and we drew a Phantom Banshee, this card is very nice, because now we've got those 2 rune chants that we need to play Phantom Banshee for free. That is really good. And so for this version of the deck, if we're doing if we're going into an aggro match or for a faster game, we are going to take Quill Hand instead of Grasp. It's just better. And then for our boots, we want Spellbound Creepers. So this lets us play non-attacks as an instant. So if it's a non-attack with Go Again, that creates an action point for us. meaning that we can attack with more than one, or we can attack more times where we can play non-attacks that don't have go again, like Read the Runes. This card is so good. And if you're like trying to get into Runeblade and you're like, what card should I like drop the money on? It's this one. Especially if you're playing Viserai or Vynnset. Briar's totally fine not taking it. But for those two, or if you're playing Chain, I think Chain actually can make good use out of this. Although a lot of people take Scalers with him. But anyway, that's beside the point. Creepers, we're taking it. It's the best. So yeah, that's our equipment suite here. And now we're gonna get into the attacks. Like I said, we're not just gonna take 2-cost attacks. We are gonna take the attacks that give us best value, that are shadow attacks, or blood debt attacks, so we can banish them, and cards that are going to get arcane, that want to have dealt arcane damage to turn on their abilities. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're gonna do the attacks first. When I build Runeblade, I always start with the attacks because I feel like typically that is what attacks you take is kind of dictated by your weapon. And like I said, we're not following that rule as strictly as we would in Viserai. But typically we want to start with the attacks, and then we'll kind of go through the non-attacks and we'll fill in, what kind of things are going to synergize with the attacks that we took. So let's look at the blood debt ones first. Oh, hi, Speary. She's back. She's so cute. Why don't you settle down and take a nap? So blood debt. We need to select attack here. Oh, we already did. Search attack. Blood debt. Awesome. Runeblade. Okay. So this is great. Bounding Demagon. It's a 0 for 4. That is just quite simply very, very, very good value for a blood debt card, because typically the blood debt cards, since you play them from banish, they do typically not follow that curve or the cost balance, where like if something is like this card should be a 0 for 4, right? But it's a 0 for 3 base, and then it becomes a 0 for 4. Very good. So it's a blood debt card that gets to act like a regular card. Love it. That's in the deck. Like I said, there's really only this to pick from. So we have to kind of branch out. We can't just take 2 costs. I am running Piercing Shadow Eyes. This is a card I've never really played around with before, but in this deck I'm taking it because if you have dealt arcane damage to an opposing hero this turn, Piercing Shadow Eyes gains +2. Again, we can make that happen with Vynnset. All we need to do is pitch a shadow or play a shadow non-attack, right? Very good. And now this card, which would be played from blood debt, or would be played from banish, so it's a blood debt card. Now it is a 2 for 6. Again, acting like a regular valued card. So very good there. And we are also taking Riftbind. This card is crazy because we can get some very, very big attacks here if we are playing multiple non-attacks. So this is very good. We can get that up to 5 or 6 even. So definitely one that we want. Take 3 of those. I'm not taking this because it doesn't have really any abilities that play around it. The only benefit of playing it from banish is that you deal an arcane. Whoop-de-doo. It's a 2 for 5. It can't become a 2 for 6 like this can. It can't become a 1 for 5 like this can. It can't become... So just the value of this is not as good. So we're going to take this as well instead. Rip Through Reality. Very, very good. This is the blood debt version of Meet and Greet, essentially. So very good card for this deck. Now there's a lot of play lines here that open up with this card and Meet and Greet. If we see a Seeds of Agony and one of these, we're good to go to play that Seeds, pay a life, make the rune chant that we made from banishing the card unblockable. Now this gains go again. We swing Rosetta. That's our 3-card Runeblade hand there. So very good. On Hollowed Rites, again, I'm not taking it. I'm not taking it because Again, really doesn't get us any value to play from Banish. It's just a worse version of Demagon and Riftbind, essentially. And this would be great in Chain. It is great in Chain if you're playing Seeds to cycle your Seeds back into your deck. But we're not doing that. So no Unhallowed Rites. And as I mentioned, we are taking the new card, Phantom Banshee. Because this becomes a... Oh, now we can see it. Hey, look at that. This becomes a 0 for 10 if we have the rune chance for it, right? So very good. Very, very good. Definitely gets value out of playing that from Banish. We're not taking any of these yellows. We're gonna come back and do the blues separately. There's a few more reds here. Meet and Greet, as we discussed, is of course in the deck. Again, very good. We can play that 3-card hand very easily now. So this is great. And then we want, of course, probably my favorite card in Runeblade. Maybe even, this might even be my favorite card in the game. I just love Swarming Gloomveil so much. It says, if you played or created 1 or more auras, it gains Go Again, 2 or more gains +1, 3 or more it gains Can't Prevent Arcane. So this is always turned on for Go Again anytime we banish with Vynnset. And then anytime we make more rune chants, it gets additional bonuses. So very strong card. We want to have that. So we're looking at about 21 cards now. This is going to be our red suite of attacks for the deck. And we're going to fill out the rest of our 30 attacks with some blues here. And there's 3 blues that I've kind of figured out I really like. First one, we can spell Triptych. Dread Triptych. Yes. This card. All right. So what it does is, if you play a non-attack action card this turn, create a rune enchant token. If you've dealt arcane damage this turn, create a rune enchant token. If Dread Triptych hits, create a rune enchant token. It's a 3 for 4, so it's a nice breakpoint. But if we play that shadow non-attack, make the arcane unblockable, we've already turned on the first part and the second part of this ability. So we end up with 2 rune chants. Now, it is a 3 cost, right? So, like, it's going to be hard to swing Rosetta after this. But it doesn't really matter. Because if we end our turn with 2 rune chants, and we banish a card at the start of our turn with Vynnset, or hey, maybe even 3 rune chants if they're stupid and they let it hit. Then, if we see one of our Phantom Banshees, now that Phantom Banshee is turned on to be played out. So this card is very good value for a blue, and it synergizes very well with Vynnset. So yeah, we've got that. Oh my gosh, we're having a glitch here. Again, February really loves me. Speaking of Phantom Banshee. Oh wow, what is happening? We're gonna reload. Okay. There we go. We're going to take the blue Phantom Banshees as well, because this is just great value, right? It's a blue that can be a 0 for 5. That's insane. For a blue, that's just so good. So we're taking that. And then the last card of our attacks shouldn't be too surprising. It's another Blood Deck card, Shadowverser. This card says that you can play it from your Banish Zone. It's a Blood Deck card. And you banish a card with Blood Deck from your hand, and if you do, Shadowverser gains Go Again. So this is really great. It's kind of like a turn extender. It does only attack for 2, but you can do some really fun stuff that we'll talk about with this card, and things that require you to have played an attack. So things like Revel and Runeblood. If you play a non-attack, you play Ursur, you banish a Phantom Banshee, you play Revel and Runeblood, you make 4 Rune Chad tokens, and now the Phantom Banshee can come in for free. Like, yeah, that's real good. Or you use Creepers and you make that you make the Revel and Runeblood an instant, so now you've got the action point to play Phantom, and then you swing the sword. Like, this card is great. A very, very good value blue, and it blocks 3 also. So these are our attacks. Yeah. This is it. So now we're moving on to non-attacks. And of course, This is a classic Runeblade deck, aggro Runeblade deck in the Viscerai-ish fashion. So we are, of course, running our full Rainbow Maroon Skies. This card says, the next Runeblade attack action card you play this turn gains Go again, and if this hits, create 3 Rune Chant tokens. So again, another way to generate Rune Chants, to turn on our Rune Gate, and just do more damage, because Rune Chants still damage. Very, very good card. We take all 3 of those, and then of course, so with that, now we're looking to the Shadow non-attacks, right? That's kind of our next thing here. So non-attack, search, Shadow. Okay, and yeah. So as I mentioned before, there's kind of 3 that we take. This is bad. This card is bad, and I'm going to explain why. I've seen some people messing around with it or thinking about it, suggested it. It's bad because if you think about it, it's just a bad version of Sonata Arconics. Because you opt 3, you're looking for a Shadow Runeblade card so that you can deal 1 arcane and banish it so that you can play it. So the idea is that the card replaces itself. Well, it costs 1. And you can still miss it, just like you can with Sonata. It does 1 arcane, just like Sonata. But it costs 1 instead of being 0. So it's just bad. Also, it doesn't have Blood Debt. But yeah, so we're taking the Seeds of Agony, 100%. This is very good. It's free. We can play it from Banish. It turns on a lot of those abilities we were talking about that need to have dealt arcane damage. And of course, we're taking Shadow Puppetry. Next attack action card you play this turn gains +1 Go again. And if this attack hits, look at the top card of your deck, you may banish it. So this card is not only saying Go again to something and +1, it's also saying if this hits, I might just get to essentially draw a card. Because if I draw or if I banish a Shadow card or Blood Debt card that I can play, then that extends my turn. So this is 100% included, obviously. So I'm also taking the blue Seeds of Agony, just because it's a good value blue. It pairs off with all the attacks that are 0 cost, right? So we've got the Demogons, the Gloomveil, and the Shadowverser. Yeah, right, because it says that the next attack action card with cost 0 you play this turn gains deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. So this is not going to actually do any damage if we play it with any of the cards that don't cost 0. But that's okay. It's a blue. We're probably not playing it anyway. And sometimes in certain situations, if this is the only card that we need to banish, it still does things for us, right? It still turns on Vynnset. It still turns on the unblockable arcane. So it's good. So then, like I said, that is 3 currently, right? I'm not taking the yellow seeds, and the reason I'm not is because it's with cost 1 or less. So you kind of rule out, all the 2 cost attacks, right? And the Phantom Banshees. And I mean, there's more 2 cost attacks than 1 cost attacks, right? And it doesn't pitch for as much, so we're not taking it. And we are taking Howl from Beyond. And this is a part of the deck that I'm still kind of not really so sure about, because Howl from Beyond is pretty expensive. You really need to get the value out of this. You really need to see 2 blues in your hand. We're only running 18, so our likelihood of getting 2 blues in our hand is not as high as if we were taking the full 21 like you typically will with Viscerai. So I'm not too sure about this. And when we talk about the sideboard, this is often the card that I'm going to be slotting out. I'm still kind of testing this. It might be that we don't need Howl from Beyond. With the current build, we end up having 33 Blood Debt cards, which I think is plenty. I think 30 is probably fine. Like I said, about half. So this could be... Well, we'll talk about what this could be instead. when we look at the sideboard. But so yeah, those are really the only, in my opinion, shadow cards that are worth taking. So then that leaves us with 3 blue non-attacks to round out our blue suite, so that we have, 2 blue. We already have seeds. Oh, I'm forgetting 2 really amazing cards. Rattlebones. This is so good for Vynnset. Oh my gosh. It was like made for her. Banish target Runeblade attack action card from your graveyard. You may play it this turn. If you have dealt arcane damage to an opposing hero this turn, you may play Rattlebones as though it were an instant. This is so good. So it's really playing with both parts for ability, right? We're getting to banish a Runeblade card that has Blood Debt, or even that doesn't, right? We're getting another attack. We're going wider, and if you've dealt arcane damage to an opposing hero, you play it as an instant. Since it has Go again, that creates you an action point, allowing you to, whatever you banish, you can then play that card without having to have a source of Go again. So this card is absolutely bonkers. Great card. So then, another bonkers card. You will not be surprised. You know that we're taking Revel of Roulette. And this says, if you have played an attack action card and another non-attack action card this turn, create 4 rune chant tokens. Beginning of your end phase, destroy all rune chants you control. So this is so great because what we're trying to do with Rosetta is exactly what we're trying to do with Revel. So if we've satisfied the criteria for Rosetta, we've satisfied the criteria for Revel, we can make 4 rune chants, and guess what that means? We can play for free from our banish. Yes, the Banshee. So very powerful card just on its own, especially when we've got a card like this that we're getting the value for playing, for having all those rune chants, right? So then our last card here. Oh yeah, that's it. Is Convert Existence. And this is just because we need another blue non-attack, right? And this is not technically a non-attack, but we count it as a non-attack. It's technically an instant. I love this card. It says you may play it from your banish zone. It's got Blood Debt. You banish up to 2 cards in the opposing hero's graveyard. If an attack action card and a non-attack action card are banished this way, it'll deal 2 arcane damage to that hero. So very, very good finisher. It's an instant, so you can play it on your opponent's turn. This is a great way to close out the game. And it's also yet another Blood Debt card, so that brings us up to 33. It is a non-block, which is not great. So you could definitely, if you wanted to, there's some other great options. You could take Sift. Blue Sift is really good, letting you, again, fix your hand. And it blocks 3. And this Rounds on Me, of course, is really great. In fact, if I knew I was playing Ninja or something that goes really wide, you get a lot of value out of this card. Attacks the target you have -1, and you draw a card. This can really help. It's a great Runeblade card. So if you don't like the fact that you don't have a non-block, and you're trying to mess around with this deck, you can easily take this Rounds on Me or Sift instead. I think those are great options. I mean, you could even do Tone of the Arknight if you wanted to get silly. I think that card is kind of situational, so I wouldn't run it. But I really like Invert. I think it's fun. So I put that in there. But again, that's a place where you could be flexible. Yeah, so this is it. This is the deck. This is what we've got here. Again, like I said, 18 blues. So again, not as many blues as Viscerai, but that's fine. We don't have as many 2 costs. If you look at our stats here, look at that. Only 12 2 costs, 9 1 costs, and then these are the Banta Banshees, right, and the Dread Triptychs. The rest of the deck is 0, so I think 18 blues is perfectly fine. And in my testing, I found it to be not too bricky. You've got Aether Ironwave to help you out if you really draw something shitty. So yeah, that's the main deck. Let's look at the sideboard options. So I was talking about this card and how I'm not super sure about it. Well, I'm kind of goofing around with kind of Dominion a little bit. I've been trying to see if this will work. Kind of in the spirit of Zach Button's King Viscerai deck. Just, trying to really, this would be into your aggro matches, into the fast things, the things that you're racing, things that you need some speed against, Ranger, Ninja, other Rune Blades. You would take this, and then you take your cash-ins. And I do buy Zach Bunn's argument. If you ever watch his video, he explains, or his deck for the deck that he plays this in. He explains his logic for having 3 cash-ins. And I buy it. Basically, he's like, if I see the second cash-in, I've lost the game. Funny story, at one of the RTNs I went to, I did draw 2 of these in the same turn, like on my cash-in turn. And it was actually, no, I didn't draw 2. I drew 3. I drew all 3. So I started my it was like round 1. I was playing Lexi. I was doing pretty good. It was like we were about 20-20. I had the tempo and I had the cash-in turn, and I was playing this right. And I draw 2 cash-ins. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll block with 1. So I blocked with 1 of the cash-ins. I was like, because I don't need it. Then I play the cash-in, and I draw another cash-in. I was like, oh my god, like the amount of value I lost there, it was killing. But that can happen, but it's very unlikely. It's very unlikely. That is probably the only time that has happened to me. I've been practicing with that deck a lot. So yeah, we take cash-ins. We would swap those out for the Howled from Beyonds if we're running kind of Dominion, and so that would be for the faster matches. Okay, so then for slower matches, like things where you need to block more, right? We're gonna put in. We are gonna take Grasp for those matches. So, and to offset the fact that we don't have as much rune chant generation without Quill Hand, we're going to take these out in those slower matches and put in Read the Runes, which is a really great card for turning on those Phantom Banshees. Sorry, I should be putting these in my sideboard, not my deck. Whatever. These are really great if you're playing into Guardian, like into Olden, which you won't have to anyway. But these are real good for just building up rune chants, slowing the game down. This is one of the best 1-card hands. As I explained with earlier, it is a little hard to play 1- and 2-card hands with Vynnset, but you could if you had a Phantom and a Read the Runes, you could banish the Phantom, play or Read the Runes. Now you're set up for next turn to play the Phantom. That would be perfectly acceptable. So for the slower matches, we take those in. And then we need some D-Reacts because Dorinthia is a thing, Bravo is a thing. It's always good to have a few D-Reacts for those matches where you want to be able to run them. And again, I would probably swap these out for these. I might even swap them out for Invert Existence, honestly. Like, if I was playing Dory, I would probably swap the Sync Belows out for Invert because I don't want a non-block against Dory, right? That's not good. So I'd probably put those in. We got to have those. So then, another tool for the slower matches, for the ice matches, for Icelander, or anything that kind of is gonna ice us out, hold them. Or just a slower match where we know we're going to be playing, more than 6 rounds. Then we're going to take Tunic, just because we get more value out of it than we would out of Aether Weave over a long game. And with the way this resource curve is, sometimes you end up needing to pitch for 4. For example, if you're like doing this and a 1-cost attack and then sword, you would need the Tunic resource. So I think it kind of fits with the curve of the deck pretty well. And it would help you definitely in the longer games. We'll take Tunic. That leaves us with just 3 more cards for our sideboard, and we need some poppers for Dromai. Dromai is definitely a thing in the meta. We're going to need poppers for Prism when she comes out. New Prism. So we've already got the Banshee. It's for 7, so that's a great popper. But we're just going to take Amplify the Arcanite because it's so good. We can play it for free if we control 3 rune chants, and our whole deck, a lot of stuff in our deck is built around getting those 3 rune chants to play the Phantom Banshees. So this goes well, and it's a popper you can also play, effectively as well, which you usually want. This could be CNC if you really wanted it to be. It could be CNC. Command and Conquer. 100% could be CNC. Instead, if you like. I don't know. I run Command and Conquer and Viscerai, and I like it, but I've also found that, it just really doesn't synergize with what Runeblade's trying to do. It's not a Runeblade card. You can't target it with Mob Skies, and I don't have Blue Lead the Charge, which is usually a card you run. Now, you could give it go again with Shadow Puppetry. So, there's an argument for that. You could definitely run Command and Conquer if you, want to drop $300, or you just already have them. But, yeah. That's, and again, really, because on February, or on Talishar, you can't actually play her, right, because the adult version isn't there, and you can only actually get in and test with her on open format. So I have not played any games on Talishar with her, but my partner, my fiance, has been kind enough, Kayla, to play some games with me. She's been playing Fi, kind of an older version of Fi, with Emberblade and Pouncing Lynx, not Kodachis, which is a very fast deck. It's probably one of the fastest decks still. Probably in the top 3 of fastest decks, I would say. We've played probably, I think at this point, about 5 or 6 games with various versions of the deck. I've lost every single time, but every single game I have got her down to 1 or 2 life, and that is one of the fastest decks in the game. She is definitely, she needs help with sequencing a lot of her turns. She doesn't really care about the game as much as I do. She plays with me because she's a wonderful friend and person. So she's definitely not the most. She's not the best 5 player in the world by any stretch. But I'll kind of help her sequence it and help her kind of find what is probably the best line. So the fact that I can get that close to winning against Fi with this deck that doesn't even have this is without her actual card pool, right? I feel pretty good about that. I feel like that is a pretty damn good place for this thing to be in. But anyway, yeah, that's the deck. I was going off on that tangent because I was saying that I haven't really had much chance to really workshop the sideboard. So the sideboard is very kind of off the top of my head. Oh, this is what I think would be best. The only thing I've really tested around with is Crown of Dominion. I do think that's pretty good. With this deck, I've gotten up to some 27, 28 damage turns with Crown of Dominion. So on the cash in turns. So I think that is good. Definitely something to look at. So yeah, that's the deck list. Let's jump into Talishar for a minute here. And just, let's just play some lines and just kind of look at the deck a little bit. Cue the loading music. Okay, there we go. So, we're going to do just the straight version. No cash-ins. Just kind of the, if you're going against a deck that's about as fast as you or as about the same speed as you take. Now, I will say a big bummer is that they haven't coded Phantom Banshee properly yet, and it's not recognized as a Runeblade card, which means that you can't target it with Mob Skies, you can't target it with Rattlebones, and that does really affect my testing. So I've been doing a lot of my testing actually just goldfishing with my actual cards. I made some proxies for some things. We're gonna play in the fancier version. Okay, so so here's my hand, right? This is a good example of why I'm not sure about Howl from Beyond. This is perfect. Because what I want to do is play Mob Skies, play Riftbind, pitching Ursher, and then swing my sword, right? That's what I want to do. But I'm a resource short if I do that. So again, that's why I'm not sure about this. I think what I might do here, actually, if I'm going, and then when I test, I usually decide if I'm going first or if I'm going second in my head. So ideally, we want to go second typically because we're aggro, we're fast. So I'm imagining I'm going second. I think actually the best value here is to not even bother swinging the sword. I'm going to banish Riftbind, make a rune chant. I'm going to play Howl from Beyond. We do not want to pay a life. Oh, the other funny thing right now in Talishar is that every time you play any shadow attack, or any shadow card, even if it's not a non-attack, you get the pay one option for Vynnset. But we do not want to pay one right now. We don't need to do that. And then I'll just play out the Riftbind. Because this comes in for... See how it asked me to pay? I don't want it. Comes in for 7, right? Because it gets buffed by this and by itself. And a rune chant, so it comes in for 8, and we get to Arsenal the Mob Skies. That's pretty good. That's respectable. So we pass, we Arsenal. Okay, so here we go. Again, did I say it? Did I say that this card was good? Because this is a pretty nice hand. We've got Triptych here, we've got all these Gloom Veils. But we don't have a Blood Debt card, right? So that kind of stinks. If we want to play out this turn, we're going to have to basically turn one of these cards into a rune chant, which is real bad. So, in this situation, there's kind of a couple options. You can either just full block and kind of try to get the value from blocking, or you can crown it away. Now, I would really like, since I have this Mob Skies, and since I have these two, which are going to be free go against, right? I would really like to get a shadow attack action that I can banish here. That'd be my ideal thing. So we're going to try to do that. We're going to use Crown. We're going to cycle. We're going to cycle away. Probably doesn't really matter. Oh, we could cycle away our Arsenal. That's an interesting idea. Because then, even if I get something bad that I can't get rid of, I could still go Gloom Veil, Dread Triptych. That would be pretty good. I do like the red Mob Red, but I think we're going to try that. Get rid of our Arsenal. Oh, look at that. Look at that, people. Look at what we got. So now, we are off to the races, so they say. We can't, unfortunately, target Mob Skies with the Vanta Banshee, which kind of sucks. So we're gonna play this turn a little bit differently. We're just gonna go ahead, because I would love to pop Quillhand here, play the Mob Skies, play that, play the Gloom Veils, and pitch the Triptych for the sword. That would be the ideal life. We could do something weird with creepers to make this work and give our non-attack that way. But I think what I'm actually going to do is play the Gloom Veil, play the other Gloom Veil. Now that Arcane probably would hit. There really wouldn't be any reason for them not to block that. Which means we play the Triptych. Right? I made a rune chant because I've dealt Arcane. I haven't played a non-attack, which is a little sad. But if this hits, I get another rune chant, and then when I banish next turn, the Vanta Banshee will be turned on. So I think this is a pretty good line. It's forcing my opponent to interact with me. So we'll do that. And of course, Talishar says that it hits, and we lose a life here. Okay. Okay. I like this. yeah, this kicks ass. This is great. Just got to make sure I can. Yep. Oh. Yep. It works. It works very well. So we're gonna. All right, here we go. We'll banish that Riftbind. We're gonna go Mauve Skies, and then we're gonna play Riftbind here. We're gonna not pay a life for Vynnset. We're gonna instant in creepers. Play this Revel. We're gonna do that before Riftbind resolves so that the Revel ability stacks with the Riftbind so that we get the attack for 5. We made an action point, so now we've turned on. We've given you action point, so now Banshee can be played in that action point. That's coming in for 5. We've got 4 rune chants. We have 2 action points. Banshee comes in. Boom, that's for free. Go, Rosetta. See, that shit is why we play Runeblade, people. That's so good! Yes! This is so good. I love this. I love this. So yeah, that's like the perfect way to end the video. Let's not sour it any further. Go back in here. So yeah, that's the deck. That's kind of how it works. Oh, actually, let's concede though, and let's see what our damage value was here. Oh yeah, so you know, we came in for 8. We came in for 11, which was kind of okay, but we came in for 25 there on that turn, and that turn right there, that's kind of like that's the upper level of what we can do with her. And again, all this without even having her full card pool. So, you know, this is pretty good. It's definitely not, you know, we're not finished. But now that I've built this deck and kind of figured out how I like, you know, how what she likes, what she doesn't like, I feel like as cards get released, it's going to be really fun to kind of fit them in and tweak them in. We'll probably end up replacing, you know, most of the attacks with Rune Gate cards, and that'll change how the deck works. But yeah, so that's a little bit of an indication of how the deck plays, how it works. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I gotta pan the camera here and fucking show you these cools. Look at this shit. I mean, look at this. Look at this guy. Oh, and now she's. They're done. They're done terrorizing me. They've decided to be good. This is why we like having cats. Well, thank you guys. This was the first episode of the Monastery. I'm your host, Jack, and it was a real pleasure to talk about Vynnset today and take a look at this list. Expect more videos from me in the future as we get more stuff spoiled for her and we start cracking on with this. So have a great rest of your day, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Give a like, subscribe. I never thought I'd hear myself say those words, but here we are. Down in the description. Yes, I will link. I'll link the deck tech, or link the deck down below so you guys can mess around with it. All right, sweet. Till we meet again.